Hello, class. Team 2 coming at you with our presentation regarding our deliverables for our project. This week we're going to discuss how we're doing during this first phase of our project, and we'll talk about some of the risks that we've encountered, some of our resources, and all that information. Let's just dive right into it. First, we want to talk about some of our scope results. And for our goal as a group for our project, we wanted to spend about the first 2 weeks researching some disasters in our area, and we wanted to research some of the supplies that are needed depending on those disasters that occur. So for our time results, we have 0 variance within our Gantt chart, or the timeline that we have set, because we have a pretty big window of research. All of our group members are researching and are pulling their resources together, so we have no variance within our timeline thus far. We are somewhat ahead of schedule with our research, though, and we'll talk a little bit about why this is a little bit later. But the goal that we have set was to research the supplies that we'll need for the various disasters that are common in our particular areas. We also want to research the cost that is associated with these supplies and compare that to what we already have on hand. Because for our project, a lot of the common household items that we already have on hand, such as first aid supplies and hygienic products, a lot of those can be spared and set aside, so they basically become an additional resource that we already have on hand. And we'll talk about how that changes our cost a little bit later. And after we research and after we're prepared, this is when we will then begin gathering our supplies. So here's our timeline right here, and you can see we want to spend around 5 days surveying the needs of our area. We want to really get to know our areas around us. We want to know which type of disasters are common in our area, and we want to read about why they happen. And then after that phase, this is when we really start to research really good and hard information about how we can best prepare for those particular needs that we researched earlier. So we have about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get all of this research done before we start to gather our supplies. So we have a milestone that we want to meet within about 2 weeks, and we are well on track to meet that milestone. So here are some of our cost variance. This is where we take into account the supplies that we already have. Some of these items include some members of the group have a fireproof safe. We have some spare fire alarms lying around. We have some fire extinguishers. We have some flashlights and some spare batteries. Those are some examples of things that we might have lying around our house. They might not necessarily be set aside for a particular emergency, but they can be spared and put in a place that they can be easily accessible. Some examples of some items that we are in need of. In the very early particular phase of our research, we discovered that we need to set aside some more plastic utensils, some other various medications that we might not have on hand, or we might not have a lot of, a multi-purpose tool or tool set that's in like a small carrying bag that we can easily transport that. Some extra sanitation and some personal hygiene items. Here we have a little cost variance chart. So this is for one particular person. We have listed here supplies for 2 weeks. So we have food listed here. The cost for one would be about $55 to gather all of that together. That's what we estimated the cost to be. And with our research, we narrowed that cost down to about $50. So the variance is a $5 difference, or just about under a 10% difference in the variance there. And these are some of the other items that we have estimated the cost to be at, done a little bit more research, and found that the cost is different than what we anticipated. One of the more notable ones is our tools. We have a knife, map, fire starter, compass, blankets, all the stuff that could vary depending on any particular disaster. We estimated those supplies to be at about $35, but with more research and some help, we discovered that the cost might be a little bit more depending on how many supplies we wanted to gather. This next slide here is the same chart as before, but it's for, let's say, a 4-person family. We have food listed there as well at the top. We anticipated that to be around $225, and through some more research, the cost for 4 actual, it stays around the $225 window. So that'll be a 0% and a $0 variance there. And there's some other supplies that we have listed there. And those results, they could change depending on additional research, and the cost is always different depending on where you live. So that is another anticipated change that we look forward to having as we further our project. For our quality, we don't have too much to report on our quality right now. What we have here is just our chart that we want to cover. This is what we want to work towards. We want to maintain our budget. We want to not alter the project so much. We want to stick to the original form, the original needs. The only change that we have on this particular part is a participation. All of our members are participating, and we're all doing a very good job at helping each other out. Some risks that are associated that we have encountered so far was we had one member of the group this week have some vehicle expenses that needed to be taken care of. So some of the materials and supplies that we needed to research and purchase, they'll have to be done at a later date because of that unanticipated expense. Vehicles, they tend to have need for a lot of maintenance, and we anticipate that, but we don't really anticipate it being right now, so to speak. We are on track for our acquisition of these goods, and we still feel that we can fit this within our timeline. It's just it might be pushed back a couple of days into the following week. We have additional resources at our disposal that were anticipated by the group, and these are the resources that included common household items such as spare first aid supplies, extra water bottles lying around, cleaning supplies, all that sort of stuff that's not necessarily set aside for any particular emergency, but it could be spared and put away and set aside and dedicated to any particular emergency. We also did not realize or anticipate how relatively cheap it could possibly be to prepare for a disaster. And this we discovered because we take into the account the supplies that we already have. If we were to go and create our list and go to the store and purchase all of those supplies right now, we would probably be in a little over our head cost-wise. So during our research, we have discovered I have some extra first aid supplies lying around. Let's set those aside, put those away for an emergency, and then we could possibly go to the store at a later date when and if we need those supplies. We'll purchase those as not part of this project, so to speak. And with those items, we need to learn how to use them more effectively so that they either last longer or they could be have a greater impact on our situation. And this is what we will continue to prepare and research for as we get additional information regarding disasters and how best to prepare for them. And that is the end of our presentation. Drop a comment and let us know how we're doing, please. Thanks for tuning in.